it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do my seasonal recommendation video. That's right, I'm going to be recommending some books to read this summer. Summertime reading, I would say, is one of my favorite seasons because I feel like that's the season where I personally get the most adventurous in terms of trying new genres out and also tackling some books that scare me for various reasons. Due to that, I feel like I have quite an array of genres to recommend to you today, and some very long books to recommend as well. But anyway, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The first two books I'm going to recommend are actually contemporary, which is a very rare occurrence to me, but I have read two contemporary books recently that I really enjoyed and had such a lovely time reading that I feel like I must talk about them on my channel. Those two books are Save the Date and The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I read both of these books basically in one sitting. They were both incredibly fun, full of cute romance, and they're hilarious, but both of them have some really interesting and dynamic family drama lines through both of them. Starting first with Save the Date, this is a story that follows our main character Charlie, who's part of a very big family, and she's the youngest sibling. This story takes place over the span of 3 days, basically during Charlie's oldest sister's wedding. Charlie has been anticipating this wedding for months, and she's trying to do everything in her power to make it the most perfect wedding day possible because her family hasn't been all under the same roof in a really long time, and Charlie's basically using this wedding as an excuse not to think about her own problems, like deciding where she wants to go to college. However, at the start of this book, you quickly find out that basically anything that could possibly go wrong with this wedding does in fact go wrong, which begins the hilarious unfolding of this novel. This book is just so great. The device of it being told over 3 days, I feel like is incredibly effective. Normally, I feel like we have books, especially Morgan Matson books or even contemporary books, that take place over the span of a summer. But this is a very condensed time period, and I feel like Morgan Matson does a really great job still creating a lot of like growth and character arcs within such a short time. She does it with flashbacks, but also just a lot of stuff happens in the 3 days. The grand family in this story is hilarious, but has their own problems as well, and I think actually my favorite element of the story was seeing the family interact with some of the most hilarious dialogue, one, but two, just have to deal with a lot of their problems that kind of occur with such a large family. Loved this book so much, could not recommend it more. It is the perfect summer read, and quickly prompted me to also want to read, inevitably recommend this book, The Unexpected Everything. And this follows our main character Andy, who basically has everything in her life planned out, the perfect internship, the perfect way to get into the pre-med program she wants. However, at the beginning of the story, her father's political scandal kind of upends everything, and she loses her internship and she begins her summer as a dog walker. This is a story that is also really funny, full of very cute summer romance, and one of the main characters is a fantasy writer, which, let's just say, appeals to the other side of my personality a lot. But again, just like Save the Date, Morgan Matson packs this with a lot of humor, a lot of fun, but also has elements of real family drama. And while I bet a lot of us can't say we have fathers that have big political scandals, I still feel like the family drama Morgan Matson wrote about was still very relatable. The communication issues between her and her father were just something that I feel like a lot of people read and can relate to, and I thought it added a lot of like real reality to the story, which I really enjoyed, and it was still fun, light, and everything you want in a summer contemporary as well. Really liked it. It's like 500 pages. I read it in one day. The next few books I'm going to recommend are some long ones. I feel like the summer is the perfect time to tackle an intimidating fantasy series. I mean, I feel like every day is a day to do that, but myself personally, I have been doing that this summer, so I implore you to give it a try as well. The first series I'm gonna recommend, should be no surprise that I love it. It is The Black Prism by Brenton. This is a chunk of a fantasy series. It currently is 4 books, with the 5th book coming out this fall, so it's the perfect time to start. This is a really interesting multi-perspective fantasy story following a world where the magic is centered around the spectrum of light. The more colors of the spectrum you can control, the more powerful you are. However, there is a drawback with using said power. You die. It basically shortens the length of your life. The story is incredible, it's fast-paced, there's so many different perspectives, there's so much high political stakes, so many amazing female characters that I personally love, and I just enjoy this series quite a bit, and it's long, but it's the perfect time to start, and I feel like I haven't talked about it in a minute, so here we are. The next book I have to recommend is one I recently read myself this summer, and you really shouldn't be so surprised that basically 3 days after finishing it, it's already gonna be in videos because I'm obsessed with it. It's just my new favorite thing, like, just get prepared. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I read this book in less than a week. I flew through this story. I was intimidated for so long by its length, but could not put this book down. It was incredible. So because of that, I have to recommend it. I have to shout from the rooftops about how amazing this fantasy novel is. It's so good. This is the first book to a 10-book fantasy series by Brandon Sanderson. It is a multi-perspective story following, for the most part, 3 main characters, but there's other perspectives sprinkled in there as well. One of our main characters, Kaladin, is a slave trying to fight for freedom. Another main character is Shalyn, who is a young female scholar trying to get the clerkship of a really powerful female in the kingdom and basically get her tutelage. And then lastly, we follow Dalinar, who is the uncle to the king, and he is just trying to protect the king and the kingdom at all costs, but he's getting these visions that's making himself very uncertain. All these character lives are very separate, but they slowly creep together, and you begin to see and slowly begin to understand the magnitude of this world and the wonder of this world that Brandon Sanderson has built. You love everyone. You also hate so many other characters. You're constantly guessing. The plot is huge, but very digestible. Do not be intimidated by the length of this one book or the length of the series. It is very consumable, and it will keep you guessing and also wanting more in all the right ways. It's a kind of giant plot where you're like, I'm loving this small piece I have right now, but I can't wait to discover everything else. You're not consuming the small piece confused and you feel like you're not gonna be able to understand until you see the rest. No, this is great. So good. And the last fantasy novel I'm gonna recommend to read this summer is the Poison Study series by Marie Snyder. This series isn't necessarily super long in length, but it is a 9-book series, so you have a lot of books to get through. This book is the first book to a really amazing trilogy that I believe expands into like further trilogies upon trilogies, hence the 9 books. Follow our main character Yelena, who at the beginning of this novel is in prison. She's given a chance to escape execution if she agrees to be the general's food taste tester for poison. There she kind of gets stuck in the middle of a lot of politics and also discovers that she has magical powers, and everything kind of unravels from there. This is a novel that has one of the greatest, strongest female protagonists I've read in a while. Love Yelena so much. But 2, has a really wonderful world that keeps growing with each and every novel. The first book is pretty contained to one setting and area, but as you continue to read through the series, you begin to see how large this world that Marie V. Snyder has made, and it's rich, full of history and all sorts of different politics, and Marie V. Snyder really takes care to grow and to expand on everything to where it feels like a very rich world, and because of that, I love it. And this also has some great romance. I love a good romance in some of my fantasy, and I just think it's a really perfect summer read. You'll fly through this first one, the second one, the third one. They're great. Next book I'm gonna recommend is a dark historical fiction novel that I feel like I haven't talked about in a minute, and that is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is a beautiful, immaculate, dark historical novel set in Spain. I believe it's set in Spain during and after the Spanish Civil War. This story is set up with a father taking his young son to the Library of Forgotten Books. There he pulls a novel off the shelf called The Shadow of the Wind. He reads it, he loves it. He dedicates his time trying to find more books by this author, and soon he discovers that someone is systematically destroying all copies and all knowledge of this author's works. And soon he begins to discover that his life is starting to eerily reflect the main characters in his favorite novel, The Name of the Wind. This is a dark and beautiful book that will keep you on the edge of your seat. It's a bit of like a historical fantasy thriller, and it has so many elements to it that will just keep you guessing. It is one that I feel like I need to reread personally, and it's the first book to a multiple book series that I personally also need to continue reading as well. So this is kind of a project for both of us. But yes, this is an amazing novel that I feel like has like some dark, rich historical fiction atmosphere, and it's great. And And the last book I'm gonna recommend is a thriller, and that is Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. This is a story following a group of beautiful best friends, and there's 6 of them, and they all go to the same boarding school. However, one day, one of the 6 dies, and from there, the 5 of them kind of scatter from each other. They don't really talk as much as they used to anymore. However, one night, the 5 kind of reconnect at this house to kind of talk through what happened that night when Jim died. However, the unexpected occurs when a man knocks on the door to tell them they are in a time snag, something called a Neverworld Wake, where essentially they're all dead, but if they come to a consensus, one of the 5 can live. This is a YA thriller that it goes like 90 miles per hour the entire time. Marisha Pessl wrote Night Film, and this is a story that definitely has the same dark, atmospheric touch that Night Film does as well. The characters in this story are necessarily likable, but you will just sit there devouring the story because you need to know who, why, and how these people have done what they did and why they're currently doing what they're doing. This to me is honestly the perfect beach read because once you start it, you're not gonna wanna stop reading it. Alrighty guys, those are all of my summer reading recommendations. Let me know down below some books you think I should read this summer, as I would love to know. And I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye.